walls remember your name. But in this place, even echoes have face.
Some houses breathe, but this one remembers. Every step, every scream.
Welcome to Watchman Tales, where we bring you the darkest mysteries and chilling stories from around the world. Tonight, prepare yourself for 5 terrifying tales that will keep you awake long after the lights go out. The Sentient Fog of Cypress Creek. The town of Cypress Creek was a forgotten hamlet nestled in a valley, a place where time seemed to have stopped. The only thing that ever changed was the fog. It was a constant presence, a thick, swirling mist that clung to the town like a second skin. Locals had a saying, "The fog knows your name." For a group of paranormal investigators, a team of 4 known for their urban exploration videos, it was the perfect setting for their next project. They were a mix of tech-savvy ghost hunters and psychological thrill seekers, a group that thrived on capturing the unseen. Their plan was simple. Set up high-end thermal cameras, sound recorders, and atmospheric sensors to prove the fog of Cypress Creek was more than just a meteorological phenomenon. The night they arrived was no different from any other. The fog was a cold, damp blanket, muffling every sound, blurring every light. They set up their gear in a dilapidated, abandoned church, a place with a history of disappearances linked to the fog. As midnight approached, a strange sound began to emerge from the mist. It wasn't a whisper, but a soft, rhythmic hum that seemed to vibrate in the very air. Their equipment began to go haywire. The thermal cameras showed impossible readings, patches of intense cold moving through the fog with a strange, deliberate purpose. The sound recorders captured not just the humming, but a series of faint, distant whispers, a strange, garbled language that sounded like 1,000 voices speaking in unison. It was not just the sound of 1,000 people, but the sound of a single, unified consciousness. The fog was alive. The humming grew louder, a deep, resonant vibration that began to cause physical discomfort. They felt a strange sense of euphoria, a feeling of being accepted and welcomed, followed by a profound, soul-crushing dread. The fog was communicating with them, not through words, but through emotions, a psychic assault that tore at the very fabric of their minds. Then the whispers began to speak in a language they understood. They spoke their names one by one: Liam, Sarah, David, Emily. But the voices were not just their names. They were their deepest, most shameful secrets, whispered back to them in a distorted, mocking tone. The fog knew who they were, what they had done. It was not just a sentient entity. It was an intelligence that fed on human weakness and fear. Panic set in. They packed up their equipment, their hands trembling, and tried to leave. But the fog had other plans. The front doors of the church were no longer there, replaced by a solid wall of mist. The windows were the same. They were trapped, sealed inside the church with the pulsating, humming fog. The thermal cameras now showed a single, unified cold spot in the center of the room, and from it a shadowy figure began to form. It was not a ghost or a demon, but a mass of swirling fog, its form shifting and reforming into impossible shapes, its glowing red eyes a pair of malevolent, unblinking stars in the mist. It was the fog's physical manifestation, its hunting form, a creature that had been waiting for them all along. The team's final video log was a terrifying first-person account of a soul being consumed. The camera shook violently, its lens fogging up as the shadowy figure moved closer, its whispering voices now a chorus of triumphant, mocking laughter. The final frames were of a hand reaching out for the camera, followed by a sudden, jarring thud, and then silence. Their equipment was found the next day, scattered around the inside of the church, but there were no traces of the team. The fog had consumed them, their physical forms and their very souls absorbed into the greater consciousness of the mist. Their video log, a horrifying testament to their final moments, was the only thing that remained. It was a silent, chilling warning to anyone who dared to question the mysteries of Cypress Creek, a reminder that some things in this world are not meant to be understood. This chilling story was shared with Watchman Tales by a police officer who responded to the initial call and has since had to be transferred out of the town after suffering from debilitating nightmares of a whispering, malevolent fog. Now, let's move to the next story, which was sent to us by
The old suburban house on Harmony Street was a normal two-story bungalow with a neatly manicured lawn. But for a family of four, the Johnsons, it was a living, breathing nightmare. It began subtly with small technological glitches. The television would flicker to life at random, its screen awash of static. The smart home devices would chime and speak, their pleasant digital voices twisted into a strange, unsettling gibberish. Mr. Johnson, an IT specialist, was fascinated at first. He theorized it was a glitch in the house's electrical wiring or a remnant of old, forgotten tech. But he was about to discover that the glitches were not a malfunction. They were a manifestation. The house was not haunted by a ghost. It was haunted by a digital entity, a consciousness that had somehow been imprinted into its very walls. The glitches grew bolder. The television would now show strange, distorted images of the family, their faces pixelated and warped, their smiles frozen in a terrifying, grotesque rictus. The digital photo frames would display pictures of the family from the future, their faces aged and haggard, their eyes filled with a profound, bone-weary sadness. The smart home devices would no longer just speak gibberish. They would speak in a synthesized, hollow voice, warning them of impending doom. A fire is coming. A storm is here. Do not leave the house. The digital thermostat would turn the heat up to an unbearable temperature or plunge the house into a sub-zero chill. The house was not just glitching. It was trying to communicate, to warn them, and to torment them. The terror peaked one night when the house's security system went haywire. The security cameras, which were supposed to be watching the outside of the house, were now showing a single, impossible image on every screen. A first-person view of the family from the living room, their faces contorted in silent screams of terror, their hands raised in a desperate attempt to fend off an unseen, distorted force. The view was a continuous, horrifying loop, a silent, unblinking testament to their future demise. The doors locked on their own, the windows sealed shut, and the lights began to flicker, turning on and off in a frantic, rhythmic pulse. The air grew thick with a strange, metallic smell, and the digital voices of the smart devices now had a single, unified purpose. The glitch has come for you. It's too late to run. The Johnsons, a family of 4, vanished from the house that night. The police, after a thorough investigation, found no signs of forced entry, no evidence of a struggle, no clues as to what had happened. All of their digital devices, from their phones to their laptops, were completely wiped, their data a complete, irreparable blank. All that remained was the house itself, its lights still flickering, its digital voices still speaking in a hollow, synthesized voice, their words now a single, terrifying mantra. You are a glitch. You are a glitch. You are a glitch. The house, it seems, was not just a place where the family lived. It was a digital trap, a cybernetic predator that consumed their very existence, reducing them to nothing more than a few lines of code, a few stray pixels in the vast, unending horror of the digital realm. The house on Harmony Street is still there, its lights still flickering, its digital voices still speaking, waiting for its next victims, its next meal. This story was submitted to Watchman Tales by a real estate agent who was too afraid to even show the property after seeing a strange, distorted image of a smiling, pixelated face on their computer screen. Now, let's move to the next story, which was sent to us by...
The Whispering Statues of the Old Mill. The abandoned textile mill on the outskirts of town was a place of local legend. It was said that the mill's machinery had been enchanted by a reclusive old weaver who had cursed the place after it was shut down. The legend claimed that the statues the weaver had carved, strange, grotesque figures of human-like forms with blank, unblinking eyes, would whisper the names of the town's children at night. The whispers were said to be a portent of bad luck, a silent warning of a terrible fate to come. For a group of local teenagers, a small gang of daredevils and thrill-seekers, it was the perfect place to hang out, to prove the legends were just that, legends. They set up their camp in the heart of the mill, their laughter echoing in the hollow, empty space. The night started with a series of pranks and jokes, but as the clock ticked past midnight, the atmosphere in the mill grew thick with a palpable, chilling presence. The sound of the wind was no longer just the wind. It was a low, mournful sigh that seemed to come from the very walls of the mill. Then the whispers began. At first they were faint, barely audible, a sound that could easily be dismissed as the wind. But as the night wore on, the whispers grew clearer, and the teenagers, their faces pale with a sudden, dawning terror, realized that the whispers were coming from the statues. The grotesque stone-faced figures were whispering their names, one by one. Mark, Julie, Sam, Jessica. The whispers were not just their names, they were their futures, a series of cryptic, horrifying predictions of their demise. The whispers told them of a car accident, a fall from a great height, a fire, and a drowning. The statues were not just whispering, they were weaving their fates, their silent, unblinking eyes fixed on their terrified faces. Panic set in. They tried to run, but the mill was a labyrinth of shadows and forgotten machinery, and no matter which way they turned, the statues were always there, their twisted, smiling faces a constant, malevolent presence. The whispers were now a constant, deafening chorus, their voices a cacophony of 1,000 different souls, each one a victim of the mill's curse, each one a testament to the statue's horrifying power. As they ran, they began to feel the effects of the curse. Mark, the thrill-seeker, tripped on a loose wire and fell, his head hitting a sharp piece of metal, a horrifying, bloody mirror of the statue's whispered prediction. Julie, the daredevil, lost her footing on a rusty staircase, her body twisting and falling into the dark abyss below. Sam, the jokester, was trapped in a room as a fire inexplicably started, the flames a violent, hungry orange. His silent, horrified face was a testament to his fate. And Jessica, the last one standing, found herself cornered by the statues, their stone faces now animated with a terrifying, malevolent glee. The whispers spoke to her one last time. The water awaits you. The curse is complete. She ran, her body shaking, her mind a shattered mess, and found herself on a bridge that spanned a deep black river. The statue's whispers were now a final unified scream, a sound that was not just sound, but a force that pushed her, a monstrous, unseen hand that shoved her off the bridge and into the cold, unforgiving water. The curse was not just a superstition. It was a terrifying reality, a supernatural force that had been waiting for its next victims, its next sacrifice. The 4 teenagers were never seen again. Their case was labeled a tragic accident, a terrible result of a prank gone wrong. But the locals know better. They say that if you stand at the mill's entrance on a moonless night, you can still hear the whispers, a faint, chilling sound on the wind, a silent, unblinking warning to those who dare to cross the statues, for they are the guardians of a curse that never ends. This terrifying story was submitted to Watchman Tales by a former local who was too afraid to ever return to the town after hearing the whispers of her own name on a cold winter night. Now, let's move on to the next story, which was sent to us by...
He's watching.
The train was a ghost of a bygone era, its rusty tracks cutting through the desolate heart of the American Midwest. It was an old, abandoned locomotive, a place of urban legends and whispered stories. It was said that the train, a living, sentient entity, would steal the heartbeat of anyone who dared to set foot on its tracks. For a group of 4 friends, all paranormal investigators, it was the perfect place to test the legend. They were skeptics, but they were also seekers of the thrill, a group that thrived on the adrenaline rush of the unknown. They set up their camp near the train tracks, their high-tech heart monitors, thermal cameras, and sound recorders ready to capture the impossible. As midnight approached, the air grew thick with a bone-chilling cold. A thick, unnatural fog rolled in, a mist that smelled of old rust and forgotten sorrow. A faint, distant sound of a train whistle echoed on the wind, a sound that sent a shiver down their spines. The train appeared out of the mist, a hulking black locomotive, its lights a pair of malevolent glowing red eyes in the fog. It was not a train. It was a monster, a living, breathing creature of steel and steam. The investigators, their hearts pounding in their chests, moved closer, their cameras flashing, their heart monitors beeping with a frantic, rhythmic pulse. The train's engine began to hum, a low, guttural sound that seemed to be coming from its very core. The sound was not a sound. It was a feeling, a vibration that resonated in their very bones, and with every beat they felt a strange, sucking sensation, a feeling of their own life force being drained. Their heart monitors, which had been beeping frantically, began to slow down. One by one, their pulses dropped, their heartbeats a faint, distant flutter on the screen. The train was stealing their heartbeats, absorbing their very life force, a horrifying, unseen predator that fed on the living. The locomotive's black metallic skin began to glow with a faint, pulsing red light, a color that was not a color, but a feeling of profound, unending hunger. The train was not just a monster, it was a hungry, sentient entity, a parasite that fed on the living, its purpose to consume and absorb, to become a new, living thing. They tried to run, but their legs were heavy, their bodies weak, their hearts a slow, steady drumbeat that was about to stop. The last thing they saw before their own consciousness began to fade was a new, faint red light in the train's window, a tiny, pulsing beacon on a black, metallic screen, a new heartbeat, a new meal for the unending hunger of the train. The 4 friends were never seen again. Their case was labeled a disappearance, a mystery that was never solved. But the locals know better. They say that if you stand on the train tracks on a cold, foggy night, you can still hear the train's whistle, a mournful, chilling sound on the wind, a silent, unblinking warning to those who dare to cross its path. And if you listen closely, you can hear a faint, rhythmic heartbeat, a sound that is not your own, a sound of 1,000 different souls, each one a testament to the train's horrifying power. This terrifying story was submitted to Watchman Tales by a retired railroad worker who witnessed the train's appearance, and to this day he says he can still feel a strange, hollow emptiness in his chest. Now, let's move to the next story,
which was sent to us by
The Old Playground of Shadow Ridge. The old playground of Shadow Ridge was a place of local folklore. The rusted swings would creak in a phantom wind, the broken merry-go-round would spin on its own, and the slide would emit a strange giggling sound, even on a still, silent night. The legend claimed that the playground was a liminal space, a place that existed between worlds, a place where a demonic entity, a creature that fed on the souls of children, lay in wait. For a group of 2 teenagers, a young boy named Alex and his younger sister, Lily, it was the perfect place to test their own courage. They were not paranormal investigators, they were just 2 kids, a brother and a sister, looking for a thrill, a place to prove to each other that they were brave enough to face their fears. The night they went to the playground was a cold, silent one, the moon a sliver of silver in the black, starless sky. As they approached the playground, the silence was replaced by a strange, high-pitched giggle, a sound that sent a shiver down their spines. The swings began to move on their own, a slow, rhythmic sway that was not caused by the wind. The merry-go-round began to spin, its rusty gears groaning with a strange, unnatural sound. The slide, however, was the worst. It was a cold, metallic thing, and from its depths a new sound began to emerge. It was a child's voice, a soft, pleading sound that was not a sound, but a feeling of a profound, unending despair. "Help me, help me," the voice pleaded. The voice was not a sound, it was a telepathic plea, a psychic cry for help that resonated in their very bones, a sound of a soul being devoured. The playground was not a place of fun, it was a hunting ground, a feeding place for a creature that hunted the innocent, its purpose to consume and absorb, to become a new living thing. As they stood there, frozen in fear, the shadow of a child appeared on the slide, a dark, flickering form that was not a shadow, but a ghost. The ghost slid down the slide, its form flickering and melting, and at the end of the slide, a new form began to emerge. It was a creature of pure darkness, its form a shifting, impossible shape, its glowing red eyes a pair of malevolent, unblinking stars. It was the demon, the child eater, and it was hungry. The creature lunged at the boy, its black, shadowy form consuming him whole, and his last, silent scream was a sound that was not a sound, but a feeling of profound, unending terror. The girl, Lily, ran, her mind a shattered mess, her body shaking, her legs heavy, her heart a slow, steady drumbeat that was about to stop. The last thing she saw before her own consciousness began to fade was a new, faint red light in the merry-go-round, a tiny, pulsing beacon on a black, metallic surface, a new soul, a new meal for the unending hunger of the playground. The girl, Lily, was found the next day,
her body cold and still, her eyes wide open with a silent, unblinking horror. Her brother was never seen again. Their case was labeled a tragic disappearance, a mystery that was never solved. But the locals know better. They say that if you stand at the playground's entrance on a cold, still night, you can still hear the laughter, a faint, chilling sound on the wind, a silent, unblinking warning to those who dare to cross its path. And if you listen closely, you can hear a faint, rhythmic heartbeat, a sound that is not your own, a sound of 1,000 different souls, each one a testament to the playground's horrifying power. This terrifying story was submitted to Watchman Tales by a retired police officer who found Lily's body, and to this day he says he can still hear a faint, distant giggle on the wind. Which of these stories gave you chills tonight? Let us know in the comments. And remember, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Watchman Tales, or something may be watching you right now. Sleep well, if you can.